Cool. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good morning.
So welcome to Startup Shook, where we talk about startups and about you personally, the founder, Mikko Mäntylä, the founder of Realm. How are
Good. I'm good. Thanks for having me. Fun to be here.
you? I had a fun chat with your co-founder, your CTO, last time when you came here to the office to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really nice because um you are the quintessential example of one guy does full selling and one guy does full building. And of course there's overlaps, but I think that's the case. And you know what Anderson Horowitz said? You gotta have the inventor and you gotta have the entrepreneur. What's your journey towards being an entrepreneur like? Who was Mikko when you were younger, 5-year-old? Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. That's a good question. I would say that in practical terms, I became an entrepreneur because I was working for Slush, which is a big startup event here in Helsinki. I think it's a peculiarity of the Finnish startup ecosystem that a lot of young founders, like recent graduates, dropouts, and so on, go through these different student running initiatives. So they might be running Fright, or they might be working for Slush, or they might be running Junction, or whatnot. And then that's what inspires you to be an entrepreneur. So that was the most concrete trigger for me. I spent 4 years at Slush. I got to meet some of the most successful company builders of all time anywhere in the world. And I think it's hard to watch startups up close and not feel an urge to do it yourself. So eventually I just realized that building companies was the best way to have a meaningful impact on problems you care about. But it's also the ultimate expression of liberty, at least in a professional sense. Like you get to choose who you want to work with, what you want to work on, how you want to work, where you want to work. And then you get to go on this incredible journey with people you really trust and have a lot of fun doing it. That's the most concrete trigger. Beyond that, I think if I look back on my life, I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I've always been at my happiest when I've been doing things on my own or with a small group of people and building them from 0 to 1. So I can maybe, you know, I don't know if I'm overfitting, but I think I can imagine that those have been the best moments of my life. And maybe there's always something innate in me that's made this a good choice.
Yeah. I was actually watching your Slash presentation just now before you came here.
Oh, you really?
Yeah, it was really nice. You said engineering though, the back in previous school. So do I.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, I moved into the startup path because I can really relate to what you're saying. You have this agency to just bring value to the world. And I do believe, I think entrepreneurship is just the most efficient way of bringing value to the world because you don't rely on previous pathways. You just start your own.
For sure.
It is hard. You have to carve your own path, but I think it's very, very worthwhile. Now, in terms of building Realm, why do you think this is something you want to be working on, and what was the story of the founder?
Yeah, for sure. So so Realm was born out of a personal pain, which I think is quite important. Don't just go and find an idea that makes sense. Find an idea that you personally care about. For us, the 3 founders of Realm, me, Mika, and Johan, the pain was that in our previous jobs, um, we felt we all do knowledge work, and every day at work we produce all of this knowledge. And so do our colleagues. But, whereas Google made the internet very, very searchable 25 years ago, one search bar where you can find anything that's ever been documented on the public web, nothing comparable exists within our companies. We're left digging through, old Slack threads or, skimming Google Drive documents or digging our CRM to understand what our company knows. And that just felt like a very frustrating experience. I think when you're a young person trying to make it in a company, you're curious and it was just, it felt like that curiosity was not rewarded in any. So that was the concrete starting point. And, it kind of still drives me today because now that we've built a product that largely addresses this problem, we are the biggest users of our own product. We use it many, many times a day. I find it incredibly rewarding because I once had this problem and now every day we're making it like go away more and more and more. Of course, along the journey, the product has evolved. We've had to adapt to a little bit to sort of what version of our original vision can be sold in the market and so on. But that original sort of pain driven excitement for the space, I think remains. I was saying that in addition to that, things I personally care about in Realm and in being an entrepreneur is, I was born and raised in Finland. We're in Helsinki or Espoo now. I am very worried about the future of the Finnish welfare state because right now we do not have enough money to maintain it. I'd really like to see it be maintained. And I think the only way in which that conundrum can be solved is if we can produce a couple of huge, like globally successful technology companies from here. So that really drives me. Those are probably the main motivations: caring about the problems and then caring about the broader impact that we can achieve by building a big company, specifically out of my own country.
There's a lot of points there. I actually learned a lot when I first came here about how influential Finland actually is. We have Bell Labs. Turns out it's from here. I didn't ever know that.
Well, sort of, yeah. it's got Finnish owned.
It's Finnish owned. And I learned that, well, not learned, but just be reminded that Nokia, like the big giant, is from here. The phone everybody uses.
That's true.
And the spare hammer in our home if, something broke. But it's crazy how Europe actually has a lot of influence back then. But right now it's getting a bit slow.
Yes.
I spoke with Donatus Peli from EF and HF0, and he spoke about how right now it's mostly focused on paperwork, and we need to change that. We need to change the fact that in America we have people sending rockets to Mars, and we have here a bottle cap that sticks. And we need to change that. And what do you think is the primary change makers, in the industry? Which sectors would you think will really push the entire Europe towards more innovative, like its past?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic point, and that's something anyone in Europe should be very concerned with, because if you look at like sort of sub-metric of total productivity, there's a divergence a couple of decades ago where Europe stopped developing at the base of the US or Asia for that matter, and just fell behind very, very badly. So I think we should be very concerned with that. I think the primary reason we've gotten into this is that in Europe, a vast share of like the smartest people who could effect change in the world still go into very traditional and very incremental pursuits. Either they're working for like an old industrial giant, like, in Finland we have like, paper mills and like this kind of stuff. Which will never suddenly become 10 times more productive than it was yesterday. Like, it's a very incremental thing by definition because you're kind of moving physical things around. Or they go into things like management consulting, or, investment banking, which are incredibly prestigious, but I don't really see why they shouldn't be, because they're also, I think, domains where an individual's real impact on the world is extremely limited. So I think what we need to do is get young people to realize that the most important, the most interesting, the most exciting thing they can do with their lives is build something from scratch, because that's what we need at the moment. What the main that should be is something like, I'm not going to have an opinion on. I think anyone who decides to build any company that aims for high growth from scratch is phenomenal compared to the sort of opportunity or the alternatives. But I will say that I think right now is the most exciting time to be building a company that we've seen for at least 25 or 30 years. And that's primarily because of AI. Like, AI is the biggest change in how the world works that we've seen at least since the internet was born. So there's a huge amount of opportunity across a vast range of domains, across a vast range of problems to really effect change and kind of rebuild the world from scratch. So if if there was ever a time to do it, I think now is.
GPT-5 was just released.
Yes.
How did your company react to that? A lot of excitement on like new things to try out, or quite scary as well because it does a lot of things quite well. I don't think you have access to it yet. I couldn't access it right now with my account, but I think people are already testing it out.
Yeah.
And it's quite scary. And I want to hear your thought about that, and then I'll go into like the tech of your product.
Yeah. GPT-5. Exciting moment. I was hyped for it, and it was exciting to see the launch. I haven't tried it either, so it was. We're recording this the day after it was or the morning after it was launched.
Yeah.
Generally, we are at Realm as a company, we're incredibly excited whenever the frontier is pushed forward. In these foundation models, because we're a product. Like Realm, basically, what it does is it connects with all of your company's knowledge, and then it answers questions. And there are parts of that process where we absolutely rely on these foundation models, and Realm could not have been built had it not been for GPT 3.5 or GPT 4 and other models today. And the really cool thing about building a product that leverages these models is that whenever a new model gets released, like yesterday, you can assume that your product is going to get better without you having done anything about it. So like the foundation on which your product is built just took a big leap forward, and so your product gets better. Of course, there will be entrepreneurs out there in the world whose businesses were just consumed by like all the new capabilities in GPT-5. So, I mean, I think you need to be careful about building something that has ample, unique surface area. Like ample components that are not a language model, because otherwise you're gonna get in trouble as these models evolve. But Realm is the kind of product where like Realm does a ton of things that have nothing to do with OpenAI or Gemini or Claude. And I think that puts us in this quite nice position where we're kind of like aligned with the development of AI. We can be super excited whenever a new model gets launched, because very soon we'll get to put that in our product, and our product will get better, which is phenomenal. So yeah, excitement. Pure excitement.
Very, very exciting. Where do you think AI will help companies run in the future more than how it is right now? Doing a lot of knowledge consolidation, doing a lot of automation work. But in the future, right now, even now, big companies are like organisms. They help bring value to the world, and once in a while, humans have to manage them. This is what management is for.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling, as we automate more and more jobs, will companies just become like organisms in the world, running independently, autonomously, and kind of like just grow by itself, see new market trends, see new problems that it can solve. And just like, this agar-agar bubble that go around in the world and solving problems and keep growing bigger and bigger. And what if it's out of our control? What if it has too much agency that this company has more influence than perhaps politicians or like change makers, and what's going to happen there?
Yeah, so that's a very, very interesting and hard question, because we're still at the very beginning of, AI, the AI revolution, if you will. Sorry. What I would say is that the very real impact AI is having at work or in companies today is that it's making individuals a lot more productive than they worked for. And I think primarily, like thus far, we've seen that change in smaller companies. Like I think the primary change today is that you can run a 10-person company, which is roughly what Realm is, and achieve as much as your competitor with 50 or 100 employees, which isn't so modern and doesn't leverage so much AI and isn't so efficient, does. That's kind of the primary change. I don't think we've seen such a big productivity leap as people were hoping for in bigger companies, and there are many reasons why that might be the case. Anyway, the impact today is like making individuals more productive. The impact in the near future, I think we're talking about a couple of years at most here, is one of increased autonomy of these AI systems. So instead of having like, cursor, which makes, any developer, plausibly, say 50% more productive, we're going to have, coding agents which go on and complete entire tasks very independently, then come back, report the results, humans review them, and then we ship them.
Hmm.
So we're gonna go from like AI being a helper to AI being acting more like an employee in and of itself. This is kind of like the promise of agentic AI, and it's being built right now. We are also building that kind of stuff. And I think once that starts to play out, I think the way AI will be thought of, or these AI agents will be thought of within companies, are more like, employees in and of themselves. Like they are units of the organization which need to be managed, which need to follow some structure and some processes, and then there's going to be humans all around the place collaborating with them, managing them, reviewing their work. So that's how I think it's gonna play out in the broad strokes. Yeah.
It's very interesting because it's very true what you said, and it's already happened. AIs as employees. The thing that really inhabits my mind is that as this AI progresses, like you said, if the foundation model is increasing, it's getting better, the company gets better by itself, the product, but also humans, we are an organism, and if the foundation models, each of the person becomes better, the country, the organization, the company, whatever it is that we form becomes better as well. But it requires less of us now, because now we have this, people predict we're gonna have the first $1 trillion company in our lifetime, and it's like run by 3-5 people, right? It's kind of scary that it consolidates so much power in a small group of people, but then also it's exciting because then this group of people can really propel and really become the frontiers and pioneers that will push and pull the rest of us with them. Which I believe is what like Europe can really benefit from. In America we have innovators like Elon Musk, people like Tesla who came to America and like really propel all these industries, jobs, with Apple, and people look up to them, and people get pushed by them to become their own change makers, entrepreneurs, building impact. But in a time where Europe needs to be as united as ever, to, like you said, we need to fix this welfare state and we need to improve Europe and bring this sort of innovation mentality back to Europe that it has quite lost. We need people to be as united as ever, but then we have these like smaller and smaller units of people that can just go by themselves and doesn't really need the rest of us.
Yeah.
How does it contradict each other? Because what do you think about it? Should Europe be led by small, tiny companies run by very few people?
Hard questions and big questions. I would say that if you think about the world over the past decades, we've already seen a shift of power from government to private industry. Like if you think about the amount of influence that a small share of really big US technology companies have over how the countries run, it's huge. And I imagine you're right in saying that shift is going to accelerate. However, like I don't know what the world is going to look like 20 or 30 years from now. And I do absolutely think it's concerning because when a single human can be many times more productive than they could before, either we just need to like do as much more stuff in the world, or then there's not going to be enough work for everyone. By and large, in history, the outcome has always been that humanity just does more things. Like we just achieve more, productivity increases, GDP increases, we just produce more stuff. We find things for people to do, very meaningful things that improve our lives. And I imagine that's going to be true much more than people think right now. Like jobs, another way of putting that is jobs are going to change, but jobs are going to be there. Furthermore, I do think while the shift is going to happen in my and your lifetime, it's still going to happen a bit slower, and we're going to have a bit more time to adapt than people may quite now fear. Like, I think just one way to think about it is that, Salesforce was founded in the late 90s when, like, the internet and sort of cloud revolution was beginning.
more than 25 years later, we still meet with customers, every week or every month, who are just now realizing that maybe they need to move their customer data into this new and new system called Salesforce. So it's taken them 25 years to realize that this is the way the world operates. There's still an awful amount of software consultants in Finland making their living like moving companies onto the cloud. So my point here, the point I'm trying to make is that if you think about bigger companies, if you're not thinking about Fright or Realm or the startup ecosystem, they're still largely applying ideas that were found or like invented 25 or 30 years ago. Like that's the lag between invention and execution. And while the world is moving very fast towards AI, there's inevitably going to be a similar kind of lag. Like before Nokia or a Finnish, paper and pulp company is going to be AI native in a way that's going to significantly affect their productivity or the amount of jobs there is going to take a very long time. So that's a little bit philosophical, a little bit rambling, but maybe some points on your question in there.
It does. I think one thing I didn't realize is the first part, which is we'll do more things.
Yeah.
And so no worries, we're gonna have more stuff to do. Don't worry about that. And a 10-person company might seem too powerful, like in a group in just Earth. But imagine if we're like multi-planetary. We're everywhere. A 10-person company, $1 trillion valuation. It's not that big of a deal. We're gonna do asteroid mining. We're gonna do all this stuff that will cost a lot of capital, influence, talent, and agency, and all this stuff. And yeah, we need more of those. And the second point you said is that there's always a delay. I think there's this quote by Sam Altman. I think the days are long, but the years are short. So I don't know if that's really connecting to this conversation, but the point is, we see sometimes, that one is about like hard work and progress and building something. But I think it also, there was another quote by this economist. Things seem took longer time than they seem they would, and things happen faster than they would think they could. I don't know. I don't know the verbatim of it, but it's the point is of the quote. When we first see technology, we're so excited about it.
Yeah.
Wow, this is gonna happen tomorrow. We're gonna change the world. Tomorrow's gonna change. What happened? People stress out. People panic. But then we realize, 5 years run, there's nothing really changing. Like where does it have? Where have it take us?
Yeah.
Where's my robot mate and all this stuff? It's not there. Where's the flying cars? So, there's always a delay between innovation and execution. But speaking to a bunch of these founders in my podcast, there's always, if I may generalize, in terms of caution, there's founders who are more of Elon Musk kind of type, looking far into the futures, very, very vague future, but it's quite exciting.
Yeah.
And you're talking about multiplanetary species and all this. And there's people who are more like Earth, who just focus, let's take this thing first, let's be more conservative and properly solve the problems we have here. Yeah. Where would you place yourself in that spectrum?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think you have to earn the right to think like Elon Musk. I guess that's the example you used. Like you when you're building a company from scratch, I think you deserve the right to you earn the right to look ahead. But when you're starting out, which is roughly the stage where you're right now, you first need to find your idea and find your co-founders and incorporate the company. And then you earn the right to look ahead by maybe 6 months. And then, you build your first MVP and you land your first customer. And then again, you earn the right to look 6 months ahead. And I think that's still, Realm is a bit over 2 years old today. And that still continues. I think we've earned the right to look 2 or 3 years into the future. Which still is a pretty pragmatic time horizon. Sometimes questions you think about are still like, how do we improve this? How do we develop our product over the next 6 months to be the most appealing product in the market? Who should we hire so that we can move as fast as possible over the next couple of months? Like those are the kinds of questions that will determine if 12 months from now, Realm is on an incredible trajectory towards success, or whether it's like a meh outcome and we're thinking about winding down the company. So I think right now, dreaming about all the grand things we're going to do 20 years from now is interesting, but it's also a little bit vague because we need to get there first. Of course, you still need to have some kind of vision for what you're doing. Like you still need to have some notion of what the world is going to look like, 10, 20 years from now, if what you do succeeds. Because if you don't do that, then I think you can get lost along the way. Like end up building the wrong kind of company, the kind you're not that excited about, the kind of company that doesn't necessarily have as positive an impact on the world as you imagined. Like you can stray off course if you don't have some notion of what you're building in mind. But I still think like the things that occupy me on a daily basis are like the next 6 months, maximum the next 2 or 3 years, because that's the time scale on which like Rel's future is determined right now.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like NVIDIA founder Jensen, he said, they don't look too far. Like 6 months is a lot of time even. And the thing with this industry that changed very fast, there's no point of looking 10 years when 2 months can like change.
That's a good point.
Everything. And I like the way you say it, like earn the right, because to make a prediction, to see the future, you have to like have data behind you. And so that's like a very, very, I think, vigilant and responsible way of seeing it. But speaking of that matter, like where do you see your product in like 5 years, 2 years from now, and perhaps in more general, broad terms, like what is your North Star, not just for the company, but for yourself? Like what do you want to achieve in like in the long run?
Yeah, that's a great question. So fundamentally, what Realm is the missing link between the power of these AI models and all of the context that your company produces on a daily basis. Like, GPT-5, as smart as it is, knows nothing about rank. It's never read a single Slack message or Google Drive document or Notion page that we've ever produced. It knows nothing about rank. And what we do is we connect the two. And what that enables today is mainly finding answers. Like you can summarize what has ever been discussed about topic X throughout your company's existence, or you can, fill out a questionnaire that your customer has sent you faster than you could before. But that's only the very first thing that the combination of these two things enables. These AI systems are going to get more autonomous, as was already discussed. And they are going to be useful within a company by means of having access to deep knowledge on your company.
Yeah.
So there's going to be an incredible amount of exciting things. I think the future of Realm looks like autonomous AI systems that leverage all of the context your company has ever produced to achieve meaningful things. And I think that's a very exciting thing to be building. And it's something that we can spend a long, long time building. So that's kind of the vision for the company in broad strokes. And I find that that's very exciting because I think it's a reimagination of how we work. I really think that we are at the forefront of imagining and creating a world of AI native work. One in which, humans are exponentially more productive. Humans don't have to worry with the mundane aspects of their tasks. They can really focus on those things which are quintessentially human, be that, strategy or creativity or decision making, all this kind of stuff. The vision for myself, I think when you're a founder, your vision for yourself is very deeply tied in with the vision for your company. It's what you want to create. It's what it's what you wake up every day to build. So maybe the only thing I say that I want to achieve all of what I just described, but I want to do so while staying sane, not burning out, keeping hold of my friends, having a great relationship, maybe having a family someday, and finding time to exercise and do things that are meaningful for me. I think building a company is a sufficient counterweight to those things, so you should be very concerned with saving precious time for doing those things.
Yeah, I would like to go into that side as well, because I think entrepreneurship is a very personal journey. It's a very you're fighting for your mission, but it costs you as well. Speaking to a lot of founders, and one thing they really emphasize again and again and again, one word. It's, you want to guess?
I don't know, balance, something like this.
It is important, but one thing that they all experience is the loneliness of Israel.
Okay.
It's very tough. I don't know if it's true for everyone, but I keep hearing this in a lot of my past interviews.
Yeah.
it might not be the loneliness where, you're in your room just by yourself. Maybe you do, because maybe that's like the early days when you have a employee or whatever. But also the fact that you're always moving. Even if you're talking with a lot of people, shaking hands, that's what CEOs do, but you're always moving away from people, meeting new people, and then leaving them behind again. And so, or maybe traveling to another country, you're moving your company to a SEV, I don't know. So it's always on the move. And so I like to bring to that. But talking about the product, you mentioned about connecting data to the company's knowledge so that people can access it. One thing I realize, and it comes up to my mind, is that as we have better models that can ingest more data, I find myself wanting to record more data, and I think that also feeds into the need of having more LLMs that can ingest even more data. So it's feeding loop. And even right now, like in my daily life, I record everything. My friend always asks me, why do you take the GoPro everywhere? You record everything. Like, are you a YouTuber? No, I don't really post things anywhere. I have like terabytes of data in my OneDrive, Google Drive, iCloud, whatever. Yeah, I never actually do anything with. Maybe in the future we can use something use that for something. But the point I'm getting to is, in companies, in buildings, what sort of new data are we going to be recording in the future that might be just unthinkable in the past? Maybe people think it invades their privacy, and what if the company knows more about the employees than they do more about the company? And maybe it's already true right now. Like in Google, the company itself, the organism, has so much agency about like the parts of it, the people, the organizations in it. Maybe we'll have sensors in meeting rooms that record everything. Maybe we already have that. Maybe we have cameras that does, I don't know. Like, what do you think is the future of like recording data in a company?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Well, I think the big thing we've seen already is that, meetings, conversations used to be a largely undocumented and largely inaccessible body of knowledge within a company. There was no way to go back and revisit what we discussed in our weekly last week.
Yeah.
That, of course, is getting very fast with AI meeting recorders. So that's a big change that has happened already. And I imagine that will continue to happen. We'll have hardware in meeting rooms that does it very seamlessly, that kind of stuff. The other thing we see is that, we started out this discussion by talking about like the pain that made us found ground, which was, one way to phrase that pain was that recorded company knowledge felt quite meaningless to us because there was no way to access and utilize it the way work was done a couple of years ago. Now AI is making, and products like Realm are making, your company knowledge incredibly valuable. The better documentation you have, the more valuable these models are, because the more accurate the picture they can form of your company is. And what we're already seeing, like today across many of our customers, is that once you give people a tool like this, the motivation to document things skyrockets. Like people get so much more excited to like take time to write that perfect Notion page and go and update that CRM after that customer call. Because like if they need that knowledge or someone else needs that knowledge one day in the future, they can trust that it's actually going to be found. So it's not a vain exercise anymore. So that's the other thing. Is like it's worth writing things down and keeping keeping them in better shape. However, then the third one, which we think about every day because we're not sure how it's going to play out, is I think there's also going to be a point when, and we're seeing the first signs of this, where you don't need to record so much knowledge because, to your point, like the way knowledge is being recorded and the way it's being processed and the way it's being summarized is so natural. One example of this is that well, let's take CRMs, for example. So a CRM is this manually maintained record of everything that you do with your prospects and customers. Mm-hmm. So it means that typically what it means in practical terms is that like you have a call with your customer, then you send an email to them. And because previously that knowledge would have been pretty inaccessible, you go and you like take the main findings and put them in the CRM. And then they're there neatly in one place so anyone can find them. I'm not sure you need to do that anymore. The meeting gets reported by your meeting reporter. The email is connected to a tool like Realm, or both are connected to a tool like Realm. And you could simply ask an AI system to summarize the same insights that you would previously spend half an hour documenting in your CRM. So that's a change we're seeing as well, where some of the old ways of structuring knowledge within a company are becoming less relevant because these AI systems can pull the same insights from unstructured data. So we're not exactly sure how it's going to play out, but that's certainly something that's happening as well.
Two questions from there. Where are other wealths of information that we haven't been utilizing very much and you think we can really capture?
And second one is, with this shift towards almost relying on AI to do all of the consolidation, insight making.
Yeah.
Do you think the individual and companies would become
less efficient, productive / useful because they are just relying more and more and less, trusting less about their intuition and their judgment to make decisions in the company?
Interesting. So regarding the first one, I think there's a whole range of underutilized sources of company knowledge. Like Slack is an obvious one. It's typically like a real wow moment of adopting Realm is when you connect in Slack and then you can ask a question and it finds a thread from 7 months ago where that exact thing was discussed. Because how would you ever have found that thread without this?
Yeah.
This thread that's so valuable. Another one is like customer support tickets. Those are rarely used for much in a company. Like you resolve a ticket and then no one looks at it again. But they're incredible, like gold mine of information on bugs you've had in the past, how those bugs were resolved, what a certain customer cares about. Like they're so valuable. And again, connecting them to Realm produces incredible results. If you think completely outside of what Realm is doing today, I think all kinds of quantitative data. One example is product analytics or product recordings. Like typically companies record a ton of data about their product. Like they probably have a log of every single interaction done with their product. They may have a recording of it. They have data on it. But like who has time to look at all of that data? No one. You do some kind of aggregation where once a month you look at it or once a week you look at it. But there'd be so much more in that data.
Recording as in like screenshots and product demos or?
Well, more like, there's quite a lot of software out there which lets companies track when you are on their websites or in their products and understand what you're clicking on and so on.
Yeah.
So that kind of data is often very valuable from a product development perspective, but rarely utilized, like nearly to the full extent. Yeah. So I think those are that analysis is just gonna get a lot more automated than it is today. And we're already seeing glimpses of that. Like at Realm, for example, we have an AI agent or just like a simple AI system we built ourselves, which whenever there is some feedback from a user, like they downvote an answer from Realm, an AI takes a first pass at why that was an issue, and only then do we kind of like route it to a human. What was your second question?
My second question was, humans relying less on their judgment because the company's systems doesn't work that.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think
because I find myself actually, sometimes when I want to work on something, I ask it, "Oh, hold on, I can do it myself. Why am I like immediately just going into AI? Like this building habit."
100%. I think it's a bit similar to how if you're when you're writing on a computer all day. Yeah. And every system you ever encounter has spell check. If you now had to write an essay by hand, like go back to school and write an essay by hand, I bet you'd struggle with like the spelling of some words because you've not had a thought about it to think about spelling for years. For years, exactly. I think it's similar with AI. The fact that you have these systems which across a range of tasks are already capable of human level thinking, and which very soon are going to be capable of, superhuman thinking across many domains. It does make you a bit lazy because you can start any problem, you can start any email, you can start any piece of writing by asking AI to structure it for you when you maybe could have done it yourself. Fundamentally, I think that's a good thing because it makes humans more efficient. It means we have this like sparring partner, which we can helps us make better decisions, produce better outputs, but. Yeah, I think every now once in a while it's worth manifesting your humanity and doing a task completely without ChatGPT. Because I guess there are still moments in which like ChatGPT is not present. Like in moments like this, wonderful kind of like human connection moments like this. You know, we don't have ChatGPT, and we still have to be able to think and structure thoughts. On
I'm
what's
not
going on.
coolly here as an overlay in my glasses. Like, what questions to ask?
Yeah, fair enough. I guess glasses are gonna take away the last human moments, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, we have to be vigilant about that. And I guess that's the challenge, you know, with running this billion dollar companies is that will that billion dollar company still need you?
yeah,
And so what kind of human do you have to be to like be so useful and so advanced that you are running this thing instead of the other way
Yeah.
around? So that's an interesting question. I think we're gonna have like superhuman humans in the future. You know, people who are so fit, relationally great, so productive,
yeah,
so forward thinking, you know, and still be very responsible. And you know, it's very interesting to see like the future humans. What are they gonna look like? Because in the past, you know, if we think about the humans, we can see, yeah, they are great innovators like people, Da Vinci, Musk, not Musk, he's here, Tesla. But in other aspects of their life, they're kind of meh because there isn't a lot of resource or time to be able to do
Yeah.
that. Right now, I think we have more and more wealth to become balanced. But the people who choose not to be balanced, they can even achieve more,
yeah,
right, in this lifetime and in this
For
age
sure.
as well. So speaking about like the personal side of things, for your own, and this is like the thing we want to discuss previously. What are the things you optimize for? You know, you mentioned you want to keep all your friends, you want to have a great family, you want to still be running this company, but balancing is kind of hard. And the question is, should we balance? You know, when we're pursuing something great, there's a question of, will balance actually be counterproductive? You know, sure, we have to like sacrifice stuff now without
Yeah.
getting balance. Some people see it that way. You know, like people working in investment banking, working 80-hour weeks, having no family, and they just achieve so much. What's your thoughts on that?
yeah. So I think balance is a word that gets misused or gets misunderstood. Balance, if you want to build a big company, doesn't mean that you leave every day at 4 and then you go and have a nice leisurely 8 hours like in the evenings. Obviously not. Like there's gonna be someone who works 3 times more than you and they're gonna crush you. Like there's no way you're so smart that you can work 3 times less than everyone else and still make it. Or 2 times less, whatever. So you do have to work incredibly hard. That's incredibly important. But I think what I've learned that compared to when I was young and I was working at Slush and like work completely consumed me, I would do it like 7 days a week. I would think about nothing else. I would sacrifice very valuable things to just be able to achieve as much as possible. Like what I've taken away from that is that that's also not sustainable. It's not sustainable because you might concretely burn out. Not everyone does, so that might not happen to you. But even if you don't burn out, you'll wake up one day and you'll realize that you're not the person you want to be. You're not in as good shape as you want to be. You don't have as many close friends as you want to. You know don't have the relationship you want to have. And you're just not like proud of yourself as a complete human being. You're very proud of yourself as the one singular domain of your life.
Yeah.
You're not proud of yourself as a human being overall.
Yeah.
I think that taught me that you need to be doing other things than just working as well. You need to work very, very hard, but you need to do other things as well. And I think what you need to, in order to be able to do that and still achieve a great amount of things, you just have to be extremely ruthless about what you spend time on at work and what you don't. Like you really have to not, a great example is that I have not taken a single VC meeting for at least a year at Realm.
Wow.
Well, last Slush was the last time we took any investor meeting because they serve no purpose while we're not fundraising.
Yeah.
Like taking, prepping for 30 minutes and having a 30-minute call with some like person who maybe is going to invest in our company in the future. Like absolutely no value today. So I won't take them and I'll instead spend my time on building product or selling the product. So I think you have to make these kinds of choices and then you can make your workouts a little bit more reasonable and still achieve a great amount of things.
Yeah, makes sense. Would you advise then people to pursue entrepreneurship? I feel a lot of people who go into entrepreneurship is more circumstantial. They are in this environment where
Yeah.
it
forces them to be an entrepreneur. Some people it's just out of necessity, just to change their life or whatever.
Oh, for sure.
Would you advise people to become entrepreneurs?
Yes. But with a number of caveats. And I think we're not talking about entrepreneurship in general here. We're talking about like startup entrepreneurship. When you're aiming to build a huge company and grows very, very fast. Because like classic entrepreneurship, I don't think is that different from getting a job. But startup entrepreneurship is very different from getting a normal job.
Mhm.
Like it consumes you in a whole number of ways. And it challenges you in a whole number of ways. But I would still advise people to do it. People who are willing to put a lot on the line to achieve things that are very important to them. Like, why I advise people to do that is just because of how much it has given me. Like, I could not imagine waking up, this Friday morning and going and doing something else than building this, own thing from scratch with people I deeply admire, around a problem that I care about. Like, it gives you so much more than I imagine anything else you can do in life. But then it also, again, consumes you so much more than many other things. So if you're willing to accept the sacrifice, then yeah, it's a really great thing to do.
Words of wisdom there. One last point before we close this up. Any pointers for future founders to be wary about
Going into entrepreneurship. A million things we did wrong that like I've done wrong as an entrepreneur that should be done better. But let's see. I think the thing fundamentally to accept if you found a company is that even if you're extremely good, like let's say you're I don't know who's the best entrepreneur I can think of. Let's say Sam Altman. He seems to be a pretty good entrepreneur, right? Even for Sam Altman, there's a higher likelihood of failure than there is of success. Like when you're founding a startup. Building a startup is such a hard thing to do. And your success is so circumstantial. It depends on so many things that you cannot control. It also depends on things you can control, but it also depends on so many things you can't control that I think the likelihood of failure is always higher than the likelihood of success.
Yeah.
So the likely outcome, if you found a company, is that you're gonna, 3-4 years from now, you're gonna be the ex-founder of a now bankrupt company looking for a job. However, while the likelihood of failure is bigger than the likelihood of success, the likelihood of success is also bigger than people think. There's also a very high likelihood that you build something absolutely massive, and you wake up 15 years from now, having worked very, very hard, and you're the founder or whatever of a very, very successful company with all the things that brings. So I think you need to be willing to accept that trade-off. The possibility of success at the risk of at a significant risk of failure. And if you're willing to live with that, because that can be a very hard thing to live with every day. At the same time, dream about this very exciting future and be afraid of the fact that you're going to go bankrupt.
Yeah.
It's a very hard thing to grapple with, but if you're willing to accept that, then then build a company.
Very great point. I think most people kind of underestimate the value of startups. It's hard, but choose your heart. I mean, it's probably gonna fail. It's still quite likely to be of value to the world, but
for sure,
it will still be way harder, or there's still harder options out there, like running a restaurant, building other things, like getting a job. It's still already hard in this thing as well. So choose your heart. This thing is also hard, but it's quite fruitful and worthwhile.
Yeah.
So yeah. Amazing. All right, Mikko. It's been a very enjoyable time talking to you. I didn't realize it was 1 hour already. Talking with someone like with a lot of charisma and energy, time goes very fast. A lot of you to pack up there, a lot of unpack there to learn from, and
Great words of wisdom. We can learn a lot from you. Well, how to start up in Finland right now, and perhaps in Europe. But we'll keep in touch, and we'll keep seeing.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Thank you.